Hello student, welcome to our physics 2 session, that is physics in a smart way. It has been a bit long since we have met. I was not well meanwhile, and old age and all that, it catches up. Anyway, without going to the details of that, let us say we start from an important topic, that is particle dynamics. So far as particle dynamics is there, the topic is particle dynamics. It is in two parts. Particle, sorry, just a minute. Let me write it again. That is particle dynamics. If you like, you can give the heading. The topic is usually known as particle dynamics. That is in two parts, particle dynamics 1 and particle dynamics 2. So any discussion on particle dynamics or particle dynamics 1 that starts with Newton, the so-called Newton's law. You know the famous set of Newton's law, Newton's first law, Newton's second law, Newton's third law. You have been going through that since your school level. And now it is time to go through them again, but in a slightly different way, in a slightly different manner, with somehow more, we may say, illumination. Okay. So we go to the Newton's first law. Everybody continues to be in the state of rest or the state of uniform motion in a straight line until unless an external net force acts on it. You can find the Newton's first law in a slightly different form. And when I say in slightly different form, they are not different to be sense. In language, they may look to be different, but they all mean the same thing, exactly the same thing. That says everybody continues, or in some cases you may see the Newton's first law starting with the words a mass continues to be in the state of rest, or anybody continues to be in the state of rest. All those things are same, equivalent. So everybody here, when we use the term that is everybody, that means a mass. A mass continues to be in the state of rest or the state of uniform motion in a straight line. Actually, your CBSE says uniform motion in a straight line. That need not be there because uniform motion is self-explanatory. Whenever we say that's a uniform motion, that is with a straight line. That is in a straight line. Okay. Until unless an external net force acts on it. The force will be external. The resultant force, if there is more than one force, then resultant force should not be zero. Okay, when the force acts, then these things happen. Usually, Newton's first law, when as a student, I used to look at those things, I used to go back in memory and all those things. Usually, that creates a mixed feeling in a student's mind. The major difficulty is the difficulty of realization. We may feel that we know the law, we have understood the law, but because it's a fundamental law, there are certain levels of realization. If a student doesn't have them, then if a student is not clear, then it can create complications for him or for her in the future. Okay. So instead of going to the so-called Newton's first law, by this time we must have mug up the whole thing. Everybody continues to be in a state of rest that is there in the screen, or of uniform motion until unless an external net force acts on it. We rather go to the implications of Newton's first law. So because that is there for some time on your screen, so let me remove it and let me put down the implications of first law, Newton's first law, and the go to its implications. What the first law implies, or what are the things, new things that we get from the first law implications. The first implications, or the thing that you get from the Newton's first law is the definition of the force. Definition of the force. First idea, the quantity, you may say the so-called physical quantity, that we got to know from the Newton's first law is the idea of the force or the physical quantity that we can brand, or we brand it as force. And before the coming of Newton's first law, we know the old views were of Aristotle, where the views were like to make a body to move, we have to apply a force. A bit queer type of idea. That means that if you do not apply force, body won't be moving, or sometime after the body will be stopping to move. To maintain the motion, force is required. That was the whole Aristotle view. Because the problem with the idea is that, and the issue was a practical one. It is very, very difficult in reality or in practice to get a frictionless surface. It is very, very difficult in practice or in reality, and that is also valid for nowadays cases also, nowadays laboratories also, to get a surface which is really frictionless. If you want to get a frictionless surface or perfectly smooth surface, a lot of time and effort is to be spent. Engineering ideas are to be borrowed, and then we can have a perfectly frictionless surface. That was the disadvantage to Aristotle and other things and other fellows, to the human being in general. So, because they couldn't get a really frictionless surface, and friction force was usually intervening, and they have not separated that. So that was the issue. So the idea of the force was garbled. But when Newton thought of, and that is his greatness, of a really frictionless surface, then Newton could find, or Newton could sense that to maintain the motion or the state of restness of a body, we don't require a force. If the body is at rest, we want to change the state. Here, when I am talking of state of the body, it is not solid liquid gaseous. It is the state of rest or the state of uniform motion, where the body moves in a straight line with a constant velocity, or the state of the motion which is accelerated. There are three states. Now, for us, at the state of rest or the state of uniform motion, where the body moves in a straight line with a constant velocity. And the third is the state with acceleration. So, as Newton says, or Newton made it clear that if you want to change the state, maybe from state of rest or to state of uniform motion, or maybe from state of uniform motion to state of the so-called accelerated motion, or maybe from a state of accelerated motion to the state of uniform motion, or to the state of rest, you require a force. But if the body is in a state of rest, then we don't need to give a force to the body, or the body doesn't need a force to maintain that state of rest. Similarly, if a body is in uniform motion, moving in a straight line with a constant velocity, body doesn't get any external force, any external help that can maintain so. Okay? And the third state, that is accelerated motion, that must require the help of a force. But basically, the first two states, where the old view was that a force must be applied, But as per original Newton's law, or the Newton's first law, a force need not be applied. We don't require a force. So thereby, idea or the clarity on the so-called physical quantity, which we brand nowadays as force, was given by the Newtons. We know of the unit and all that. The unit of force is Newton and all that. So that is the first thing. The second idea is that the property of inertia, property of inertia, property of inertia. Usually, there are two types of inertias that you can find in our books. In our books, one is inertia of rest, second is inertia of uniform motion. So the Newton's first law was basically that give us the idea of a certain property of the matter, the mass, that is the property of inertia. Inertia, property of inertia. When somebody asks me, or if you are asked very simply, or if you ask me very simply, that what is inertia, then inertia can be described by a very simple word, that is laziness. 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 Inertia is laziness, slow, and all that. Okay. So inertia, that, as I told you, that is laziness. That is in a way like this. If a body is in a state of rest, we can describe it as if it's a winter morning that is having its blankets on and all those things. If you ask the body to move on, start the motion, body won't agree. Body won't agree. Body will claim, or body will complain that I am in a state of rest. I will be maintaining that state. That laziness is known as inertia of rest or inertia. To break that laziness, you have to apply a force on your body. You have to apply a force, then force will be causing acceleration. That will be learning in Newton's second law, and the motion will be breaking out. Similarly, if a body is moving in a straight line with a constant velocity, then that will be crying aloud, "Oh, you just leave me the way. You just don't get yourself in front of me. Otherwise, I'll be colliding with you. Give me the way, give me the way. Or else, I'll be hitting you." So thereby, if we ask the body, say mentally, to stop the motion, body cannot stop its motion. Body will claim that I am in a state of motion. So I got now, that is the inertia of motion. Only way I can be stopping my motion is that if when an opposing force acts on it, an opposing force will be slowing the body, will be slowing me, or if my velocity is to be increased, the motion is to be enhanced to another another enhanced state, then the force must be acting in the same direction. So inertia is a sort of laziness. I told you, that is laziness of rest or the laziness of motion. Every mass of the matter is associated with this laziness. If the body is at rest, body continues to be at rest, and only a force can break that state. And if the body is moving, then body continues to move. Okay. So that's all for today. We shall be discussing our Newton's first law. Newton's first law. A small portion is left out in our concluding class. Then we'll be going to other laws. So thank you for your kind cooperation. Let us meet again.